Hello, everybody, and we're back for another episode of Chris Bartle's Album Club. We somehow managed to survive the last episode, and now we're back for whatever the hell this is. So, yeah, as usual, two albums randomly pit against each other from our list of submissions. Ooh. Today with me, I have Ben.
Take me to church, I'll worship like a dog.
Matthew.
Long live the fighters. Listen out, Gaib.
Fan.
I'm trying to find a Snoopy Crackle Barrel figure, so if anybody has one, I will pay a lot of money for it.
Sadly, I don't. But Paper. We also have a guy named Paper.
I will pay you more money if you send it to me, and I'll destroy it in front of him.
Damn.
That's not nice.
Damn.
That's mean.
Alright, well, you know what's even meaner? Me, apparently, because I refuse to tell you what today's albums are. You're just gonna have to make up your opinions without knowing what they're on. Just kidding. You already know what today's albums actually are.
Sure.
Okay. Today's albums are The Beyond by Fabio Frizzi. Fabio, I guess Frizzi. I'm not sure I have Frizzi right, but Fabio. The Beyond by Fabio. And Drums and Morals by XTC, or perhaps Ecstasy. I may have that a bit botched too. But that's the pairing. It's something. It's a pairing. It's two albums. So we're going to initial impressions. We're starting with you, Ben.
Fabio, the guy from book covers? I'm assuming that's not. Let me look at who he is. But when you said Fabio, but not with the last name, that's what I thought.
I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name. It's Fabio Frizzi or Frizzi or something.
Is this a film score?
I have no clue.
Let me look.
I guess
I think this might well be a film score. Let's see.
See, Ben's let the cat out of the bag, so I guess while Ben's looking it up, I'll just give my initial impressions.
Yeah, it's a film score. It's a film score. It's a film score from an Italian film. Versus, I mean, I do know Ecstasy. They were banned from the 80s. Anyway, this is a film score. Fabio Frizzi is a film score from a English language Italian Southern Gothic supernatural horror film.
Okay.
That takes place, it looks like, in New Orleans. So, more film scores, I guess.
Okay, just since the cat's out of the bag, I just want to say, I'm not familiar with Fabio Frizzi or even how to pronounce the name at all. That's clear. So, just fair warning, I didn't know this was a film score. Sorry, we're going on to you, Matthew.
I know what I'm picking. That's it.
Alright. We're going on to Fan.
So, Fabio Frizzi is a very famous Italian film score composer. Of course, Italian films have different types of scores. It's more song-based as opposed to film-based. So, like, somebody like Hans would do, like, something more for the film, whereas they would kind of write songs that would be songs but fit the themes to the film a little bit more. So this is more of an album than Dune 2. Just like, fair warning, this isn't just like another 80 minutes of just like score music. These are more so songs in song format than the Hans Zimmer stuff. Yeah, I mean, one of the greatest movies ever made. I think that's, of course, a lot of critics at the time may have not believed it, but they got that, the kind of hack job American cut. But all-time movie, XTC, I have not listened to. I have been meaning to listen to them, though. I have been told to check them out, and I've been told I would probably like them. Wait, unless this is the one band that I have heard one of the albums, but it is definitely not this one. So I'm excited because, I've been told, oh yes, so I have heard the album Skylarking. So I'm excited to check this one out because I thought that album was pretty cool. So this should be a really fun episode. I'm excited.
People. Sorry, people.
This is definitely odd pick, I must say. Back-to-back movie scores. I just hope that this one is more enjoyable to me than the Dune one. And XTC, I do know a few songs by them. I do like what I do know. And so, like Generals and Majors, Dear God, and this one has Making Plans for Nigel, which is the one song off of this album that I know. So, I guess I'm interested to hear the rest of it.
Alright, and as the main, I already gave my thoughts on Fabio, but as for XTC, I know like one song from this album that's Making Plans with Nigel, so me and people are on the same boat. I also know like one other XTC song, which is The Disappointed. I don't even think I really knew the other ones he listed, so I'm even more unfamiliar with them than he is, and also have not listened to a full album like Fan has. So, should be interesting. And as for Fabio, I have no clue. Alright, we're gonna go listen to these albums now, and we'll be back with our thoughts on them. Alright, we're back, and we've listed albums, and now we're here to give our thoughts on them. The first album was The Beyond by Fabio. I'm still not sure how to pronounce Fabio's last name, so I'm just going to be going with Fabio for now. Ben, we'll start with you. What were your thoughts on The Beyond?
I think we should let Fan go first, actually. I think that would be preferable. And then I can add what thoughts he's already covered. Just add what thoughts I have that he hasn't already covered. Because I think he could say a lot of things better than I can on this album.
Alright.
Okay, well, once I'm done, I'm not sure anybody's gonna have anything else to say. We'll put it that way. Alright, so, welcome everybody to The Beyond, or L'Aldea, or The Seven Doors of Death. Actually, not The Seven Doors of Death, that has a different soundtrack, and ruined the film's reputation in America. Different cut, different edit. The American film industry, when will you ever understand and learn not to ruin things that you don't understand? The answer is probably never. I like that the record shows you what it's going to be right up front, right from Verso L'Ignato. You get a good idea. I don't speak Italian. So first, fair warning, I don't speak Italian. I'm not going to nail these names. I tried to look up a translator for some of them. Some of them I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go for it. So I deeply appreciate the music though, so you can at least get that. But I don't speak Italian. You get a good idea right from the start from what you're gonna get. A terrifying yet melodic opening piano lick, then the band kicks in as the key changes. It's a very menacing sound overall. Then we get to the first incarnate of Voci dal Nulla. The stunning first part of this tune, it just puts almost everything I've ever heard to shame. Part 1 in the section is an E minor. So pretty much the entire record is in minor for the most part, except for the blues New Orleans track we'll get to. The devastating little bit of music with the sliding bass. Of course, the fretless bass is such an important element to this entire record. The sliding, smooth harmonics, it's crucial to this record's success. I've tried to look him up. I did some research. I cannot find who played bass on this record. I can't find any credits for anyone other than Fabio, which is such a shame. I keep seeing the name Roberto Fassini pop up, but he played on a re-release and multiple Fabio tours. I doubt he was the original bass player, considering he was born in 1979. I don't think he was 1 or 2 years old recording this record. So we can rule him out, but if you look it up, he will come up, but that's not who did it. Of course, such a shame that we can't figure it out. Also, another instrument crucial to this record's success is the mellotron. We can assume Fabio is playing the mellotron, but we don't know for sure. That's who I'm going to guess did it, though, as I believe he is a piano player. But either way, no credits. I would be giving lots of credit to everybody on this record if I could. Of course, the ending of the song here is a bit calmer than they do, less quiet, although not the calmest version of Voci dal Nulla on this record, actually. This is a record that is going to be using the same themes or changing them up, different sections throughout the record. We'll get to the genre here, which is Discogs is very confused about what the genre of this record is. They have it listed as an electronic record, which is just not wrong. No, which is not right. It's very wrong. With the style of electro, experimental, disco, and soundtrack, most of those aren't right at all. This is 100% a rock progressivo Italiano record, without a doubt. Or progressive rock, of course, that's its own genre due to just the sheer number of Italian progressive rock records. They had to make an Italian version of progressive rock just for sheer volume alone. So then, Suono Aperto, a short little number with that grooves throughout that entire disorienting riff. A great tune ending, of course, with the same stinger as the middle section of Voci dal Nulla Part 1, which then leads us to Sequenza Coro e Orchestra, which, of course, has that orchestral version of the ending theme of Voci dal Nulla. Lots of lay motifs throughout this record, lots of same music being used on the chorus of it. We, of course, discussing that on and off. Of course, then we get to that beautiful string section that just keeps going back to that tritone thing with the clav, which is such that amazing touch to use the clav there. On that B, F, A, E flat, G, D flat thing. Oh, the clav puts in so much work. For the instrument primarily associated with funk music for good reason. It is the funk instrument. It pulls a lot of weight here. To adding these dark, eerie themes, doing a lot of work that most people wouldn't think a clav could or would do. Of course, that's the kind of thing that you'll get from these composers. That's something I would never think to do, but it works so well. Then next up, we got Oltre la Soglia, which brings us to one of the most important themes in the album. Yet again, which of course is that terrifying theme. This one of course being a D minor, the A, B flat, A, G, F, G, E, F, D thing. And we're in D minor, but I bring up the notes because we resolve on the D, but we resolve on the and of 2 in the bar instead of either the 3 or the 1 of the next bar. So the conclusion never really comes. Despite landing where home should be, we never actually really feel a resolve. We always want more and more, but the tension is never ending. And it just repeats over and over again. And we just go back to that original chord progression. But then we go into that E-flat thing with the repeating cymbal pattern. Nothing but E-flat cymbals and maybe some spare kick drum before finally resolving it to the original chord progression, but it never feels like you're home. It's kind of like a terrifying maze, unsettling. You never know where you're gonna go next. It's almost anxiety inducing because it's just tension, no release. When there should be a release, it doesn't release because they're using these techniques to make it not fall where you think it should. And then we return to Voci dal Nulla again for the top of side B or the ending of side A, depending on which version you have. Of course, this is a record with multiple versions. There is the extended director's cut that Fabio re-recorded. Then there's also the extended cut that's about 56 minutes. That's really great and just has more music, more, little things. And then there's this version, which of course has the original 81 version, which is what we are listening to. And that kind of splits things up, obviously differently from the other versions. But, of course, it is kind of weird that one of them has this closing side A and one of them has this opening side B, so I don't know why they did that, but just thought it was kind of fun. We return with elements from Sequenza Coro e Orchestra right away as we, slowly implementing things from other tracks into these different tracks, slowly building upon things here. It's more energetic than it ever was in part one, going back and forth between the key changes, toying with the expectations. We don't get any different things here. We just kind of go back and forth and back and forth, It's like tennis, back and forth. And then they bring it down, wind it down, and then bring it back up again. Very brilliant stuff. And then we get back. Then we go to Suono Aperto Part 2, which is an entirely different dynamic. This one's orchestral and slow and lush compared to the original jagged, fast, anxious first version. And then we get to Voci dal Nulla Part 3, which is extremely muted by the standards of even the first one, certainly the last one. Even with the choir and orchestra, it still has less energy. Certainly kind of slower, more emotional. At 26:56 in the record, we get a piano part on this record, which I think is the most beautifully haunting thing I've ever heard in my lifetime. It makes me weep when I hear it. My heart just breaks. It's something that I can only describe as perfect. It's really the encapsulation of this whole record, which is this terrifying, horrifying, yet deeply melodic and beautiful music. And in that one part, you could really sum up kind of the whole record, in that it isn't just horror. The music is also heartbreaking, sorrowful. This is really just music that just can destroy you on so many levels. It certainly does to me. I can only describe it as perfect. Then the tune builds up and up, but still never gets as intense as the first or second, despite adding the new instruments and new ideas. I think this one might be middle of the tempo. Obviously, I think 1 is the slowest, 2 is the fastest. I think this is right in the middle, but this one never reaches the highs. This is definitely a more kind of emotional variation of this theme. And then we get to Giro di Blues, a New Orleans blues, which now we're going to do what we didn't do last week. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the movie. Is it relevant to the album? Maybe not. But last week, you could talk to anybody about Dune 2. That movie made $714 million. I wanted to talk about this movie for like 7 years, and damn it, if I have a chance, I'm going to talk about it for a little bit. So this is a little self-indulgent. I understand. I'm going to do it anyway. So this is the second film in Lucio Fulci's Gates of Hell trilogy. The trilogy are not 3 films that take place in one story. This is not like The Lord of the Rings. They're 3 separate stories about 3 of the doors to hell that are placed throughout the world. So, different places throughout the world that have inadvertently have gateways to hell. And those are the themes running through all 3. The first film is City of the Living Dead, which for a while was not Cleveland, shockingly. Which was my favorite for a while. Then The Beyond, which is what we're doing now, and then The House by the Cemetery. Which is good, but not as good as the first 2. City of the Living Dead also has a tremendous Fabio Frizzi score to it, as do multiple other Fulci films. They were closely together for a while. Zombie 2 in Europe, or Zombie/Zombie Flesh Eaters in other parts of the world, is another great one. Of course, it's called Zombie 2 in Europe because It's the official sequel to the European cut of Dawn of the Dead, which was named Zombie. Because, fun fact, in Italy, this is a weird fact, I had to bring it up though. You can just make a sequel to any movie. Like, this movie, Zombie, is unrelated to Dawn of the Dead, but you can just be like, yeah, I'm making a sequel to this, and they'll be like, okay, that's fine. It's part of the copyright law, which is just really weird. I just had to bring it up. I think it's really funny. Then House by the Cemetery is a score by Walter Rizzardi, which is very good work in its own regard, but it's a very different style, very different vibe. It's also not as good. So this film focuses on a hotel in New Orleans, which of course is why there's some Dixieland jazz on this record. Starts in 1927, where a lynch mob kills an artist/warlock who was a painter protecting one of the gates of hell. If the gate is open, the world is destroyed, and all of humanity is destroyed as well. Years later, in October of 1981, I figured out the date using some very skillful pro football reference searches. The woman Liza takes it over. Her uncle owned the land, but he was just kind of like a real estate guy, just owned it, never did it. Anything with it. So then things happen and just weird, bizarre stuff. Filmmaking wise, it's rather different than anything I'm sure at least some people in here have ever seen. Italian horror in this time period especially relies less on plot, dialogue to tell a story. One, visuals, atmospheres. This is more of a nightmare than a standard narrative. Which tying into the soundtrack, which is why it's kind of almost dreamlike, nightmarish in its own regards. Anyway, I won't go out of my way to spoil too much, but I mean, this movie is just crushing, and it's one of my favorite movies ever. So anyway, going back to the text that we are discussing, which is Fabio's score, we return to a redux of Verso Lignato, which has a very different take on it, faster and more happening. The album builds and builds just throughout, consistently getting bigger and bigger and just adding and adding stuff throughout, which is such a perfect quality for the album to have. Then at the end we get Sequenza Cicada Ritmica e Tema. I definitely got that one wrong. A terrified rock tune returning to the themes of Oltre la Solgaria to close out. This is the music that plays during the most infamous sequence of the film. Just figured I'd bring that up. If you don't like stuff happening to eyes, then this is definitely not a movie for you, because everything is kind of like, oh, we're attacking the eyes. Happens a lot. But we go back, and
No way.
we just keep going back and back. What?
They made a Legend of Zelda film adaptation. They just keep attacking the eyes. You gotta solve a puzzle. You know, you take the O's device, you take the... Sorry, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but, you know...
I don't.
In the Zelda games, you know, always, you know, for something you have to shoot with an arrow to, like, activate some, like, thing in the dungeon or whatever. It's always, like, an eye or something. It always looks like an eye for some
I do know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
so I was just like, oh yeah, and Ben's like, the Majora's Mask remake always has you attack eyes for some reason too, the 3DS version. So I didn't interrupt there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It is a fun aside, and it gave me a chance to take a little bit of water, which is also good. The way the album just keeps going back, and the way we just keep going back and back, the theme almost droning on to build this tension. It's such amazing quality, and you know, and then it just kind of ends. We never really end with a resolution. We just kind of end with lots of tension, and that's it. We just have like 40 minutes of tension, and then it never resolves. Which really, for a horror movie soundtrack, is probably pretty good way to close your album, to format your album. Just never resolve. Anyways, to me, this is a perfect record. This is one of the few pieces I would dare to call perfect. I think this goes beyond your kind of all killer no filler type concept of a perfect record, which certainly does exist and is an argument to have, but this kind of goes beyond that, I guess, pun intended. Well, maybe not. You can feel your own vibe out with that. But this kind of takes things to a different level as using the album format to just grow and stuff. Even without the movie, we do not need the movie at all to claim this as a perfect record in my eyes. I would not want to live in a world without this record existing. I think my existence would be worse without having this record in it. This is legit stuff. So, yeah, all right.
Ben?
I'm gonna go drink some water.
Oh, yeah. Good luck with that. Ben?
Yeah. I don't have too much to add on top of that, unsurprisingly. But I will say that I quite enjoyed listening to this record. I thought that its sound kind of reminded me of the songs in Legends of the actually. Surprise, surprise! Not the first time it was referenced in this call. Video. But I think that specifically Majora's Mask, it reminded me of at times with a kind of a dark, kind of dungeon sound of some of this. What fans said called the droning. I think that worked really well. Like, I think that this record altogether worked quite well. I don't really have that much to add from it. I listened to it on a YouTube video that was just like the continuous album, just in one video. So my sense of the separate tracks, all their names, almost non-existent, other than what is obvious for what's going on when it changes from track to track. But so I don't really have that much to say on this album, but I did really enjoy it anyway. But there's just not much I could add to what fans said already.
Excuse me. All right, Matthew.
I would like to talk about the movie as well as the score and the soundtrack that the soundtrack that the movie is accompanying. The movie is really strange. It doesn't make any lick of sense the vast majority of the time. Characters make decisions that don't make any sense whatsoever. Um, the violence is kind of gross. Um, um, you know, I thought the acting was kind of fine, but like, especially at the third act, it just is fucking bewildering. Um, Especially when the dude was literally um, was shooting, and he literally was doing everything except shooting a headshot, which he should have done. Um, at first, literally when he was taking headshots of these guys, it was successful, and I don't understand why he kept on shooting everywhere but the head. But it was just strange, and especially the woman near the end where he had the bathtub. She should have ran um, before it got going. She was taking too much time to be honest, and and also I didn't, and I have to say, didn't know that this was a part of a trilogy. I didn't know that. Um, but hey, I guess, man. I guess I need to see the original and uh the finale. And I also think it's funny how all three movies, the main actress is in these movies, but she doesn't play the particular same character. I think that's kind of funny. Um, you know, but yeah, hey, I guess I need to watch more of these Italian movies. Uh, but in other sense, I thought this was a pretty good record. Highly recommend. That's all I'll say.
Okay, that was mostly about the movie, not about the album, but that's fine. Anyways, so we're moving on to Paper. Sorry, we got a little bit. Hold on, I got a bit confused, but we're moving on to you, Paper. Sorry, it's your turn next. What are your thoughts on this album?
I was pleasantly surprised with this album. I went in with no expectations. Yeah, I had no idea what to expect. And the first track on this, which I'm not even going to pretend to know how to pronounce, but it's the first one. I was not expecting it to turn into kind of a semi kind of groovy-ish track. I don't really know how to describe it, but like when the drums kicked in on that first track, I knew I was in for a treat for this album. And I was. A lot of great instrumentation with, I think if you said the Mellotron, you called it, just and the bass as well. Just, again, fan covered most of what any of us had to say, which is good. I mean, because I didn't have much to say to begin with, but I did thoroughly enjoy this album actually all the way through. Very solid soundtrack. So I think I'll check out the movie as well. Very good. I don't got much. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's completely fine, especially with how much fan talked. As for me, I did not watch all of the movie. I just watched some of it. Sorry, fan. Just not really my style of film. But as of music, I did actually kind of dig the music. You know, it was kind of, I don't know, a little melodramatic, but like that's perfectly good. I generally actually approve of the melodrama. It kind of sounded like Castlevania music, I guess, in a way. It's kind of was like my thoughts. You know, it very much did sound like horror movie music. Just listening to the album, I can imagine it being like the music to a fun horror movie, but watching the movie, it very much did not seem like one of those fun horror movies. It seemed like one of those kind of like disturbing horror movies. So, that's a thing, I guess. I'm not necessarily insisting that it was a disconnect there, but I'm just saying how it works as an album on its own and how it works in the film is a little different. So yeah, basically, yeah, I did enjoy listening to it. I did find some of the kind of jazzy stuff kind of just came out of nowhere. Um, like Ben, I couldn't find this on streaming. I just found some like YouTube upload of the album. So disclaimer: I obviously don't necessarily support. Yeah, I support obviously trying to find your music officially available if you can. I unfortunately was not able to find this. We still did listen to it. I unfortunately did not have track names or any sort of liner notes or anything in front of me. Listening to it like that though, so I could kind of tell where the track started and stopped a little bit, just from, you know, how it was formatted, the sound, but I didn't have timestamps or names or anything of the sort, so I can't like comment specifically on that. But yeah, it's good music to listen to. I personally just kind of listened to the album, skip the movie. As I said, I watched a little bit of the movie, not my style. But even if the movie's not your style, I think you can still listen to and enjoy this soundtrack because it's not really that disturbing sounding of music. It's more like kind of hammy kind of horror music, kind of like Castlevania music. But yeah, the movie may not be everyone's cup of tea. Alrighty. Anyone have anything else they want to say on The Beyond by Fabio?
Yeah, I forgot to say that you were talking about Castlevania. I definitely felt that this soundtrack or a lot of this music, or maybe music in this genre or era, definitely inspired a lot of old, like at least music for gothic style video games like Castlevania. So I think that's pretty cool.
Well, there you have it, folks. He thinks it's pretty cool. Alright, we're moving on to the next album now. Next album was The Drums and Morals by XTC. And we're going back to the top, starting with you, Ben. What were your thoughts on this album?
I thought this album was too busy trying to be Talking Heads. And trying to be Talking Heads and it not succeeding. That often. Now, there were a few songs on here I liked. I think, Wheel by Wheel. And I think I liked the opening. I think that I liked. Of course, I liked. Um, it's not just that I think that I liked it. Of course, I did like it. I liked Wheel by Wheel. I liked the opening track, Making Plans for Nigel. At least some. I have heard that song before. The story with Helicopter. Clearly, a lot of the album was like, I'll try to do David Bone intonations. They're trying to just imitate Talking Heads, and it usually didn't work. I mean, the times when this album is good, it's just walking, and when the times that this album is not good, it's not working. That's kind of this weird. I mean, we also see this kind of style with They Might Be Giants, but they're not trying to rip off David Bone. In the same way. So, what do I mean by this? Well, I think Helicopter is the best example, because this is what I noticed of this is what was happening. Let me pull up the lyrics for that briefly. Alright, she, not even she, a laughing, giggly woolly bird. She got to be obscene, to be abhorred. I really think it's about time she came down. That's the chorus for this. The problem is that when I read these lyrics, I'm hearing David Bone's voice in my head trying to read. It's just funny. I can't imitate it though. When she's up there trolling round, it's like a helicopter copter. She's landing on the town. It's about time I stopped her, where she's up there trolling round, like a helicopter. Copter, oh helly. Okay. I mean, but this idea of like a woman floating around, etc. That's just a Talking Heads song. That is just a Talking Heads song. But the helicopter business.
Ben, may I, I just want to say, I know you're partly thinking of that one Talking Heads music video for And She Was. I will just want to point out briefly, this is technically before that. This was 79, yes. That was like 84, 85, I think, so it's, just that specific Talking Heads song was after this album,
And they still did a pedal anyway.
That's fair. Continue.
I mean, it's basically just that, except for with a helicopter metaphor, that was just really goofy. I mean, the whole album, frankly, is just goofy, which is not horrible. It's not like I was like, oh, I hate this. It was just odd. Yeah, I can't say I hate this album, but yeah, that makes it sound like I hate the album, but I think just in general, it was a little too goofy for me. It's like the goofiest of the Talking Heads, but by somebody who could sing worse to David Bone, in David Bone's voice. Just big goofy. I'm walking around like I'm 10 feet tall. Once again, I don't hate that. Now, okay, so if we want to make the argument against what I just said, I think that that's quite possible. Why? I mean, this album is from 1979, which is... I mean, Talking Heads was around and had several albums, but how big they were is more complicated, because this is prior to Remain in Light. So they did have some successful songs. For instance, Film Music had reached number 21 on the Billboard 200. Well, that was... actually after this album came out, when it peaked. I mean, there was some influence by Talking Heads around.
Keep in mind, I just want to say, keep in mind, Talking Heads, their music was their third album. They did have Take Me to the River as a hit from their second album prior to this.
Yeah.
That probably would have been more around when Drums and Wires was being recorded as opposed to actually being released as well. I don't know the exact dates. I'm just saying, keep in mind this album would have been recorded obviously before it was released, because of course it would. But keep in mind also, Talking Heads' 78 album did have a successful single from it.
Yeah.
And Psycho Killer was 77 as well. So
yes. Now, looking at what critics said about this album at the time, there was a couple. I mean, it's odd. They don't really talk about Talking Heads in it. They compared them to one. They accused them of being too focused on the Beatles, and a push that I did not get from this album at all. Some references to film Greta Ass, that's so odd. And then Playboy had published a single says review. Devo clowns that sound more like old Maxwell House Percolator than a rock band. Okay, Devo, yeah, but this definitely does remind me of Devo, but it really reminds me of Talking Heads more. Yeah, surely may know Talking Heads, but admittedly it is still rather early for them to be too dependent on Talking Heads. So I feel unsure whether this is actually being fair to them. Yeah, I mean, I do wonder, because they were doing lots of, experimental work on this, etc. I do worry that I'm not being particularly fair to them. I don't know. This album was just a little too goofy for me, and yeah, I don't know. I thought it was at best fine, but usually kind of more like, yeah.
Matthew.
I'm just gonna be honest. This album was awful. I hated every single minute of it. Even if this wasn't this was made before a certain Talking Heads album, it's still Talking Heads, but without any of the sauce or the riz or the energy of Talking Heads. This is just one of the worst albums I've listened to. It's annoying, it's frustrating, it's bewildering, it's baffling. It makes you question why this was made. This is probably one of the worst ones we've done. I don't think there's anything memorable about it. It's the wrong kind of goofy. It is not like, Batman and Robin or like the Room type of goofy where it is so bad it's actually hilarious. You get more enjoyment listening to an actual good album like Man of the Woods by Justin Timberlake. And even so, when Ben talked about They Might Be Giants, which he mentioned, and I think obviously the commonality we have was that They Might Be Giants album that we listened to was actually a good album with powerful themes like Doesn't It Suck Having a Friend Who's Racist and is just ruining the vibe. Everyone knows that feeling of knowing somebody who is bigoted on certain levels and they're just ruining the party and ruining the fun and you don't really like hanging around them. So, I hope I never hear this album again. That's all I'll have to say.
Fan?
Three of us all came to the same conclusion, because this is just a lip off of the Talking Heads. Now, I will say, in response to Ben there, briefly, I do think anybody who would be in the know would know who the Talking Heads are by this point. Like, they did have Take Me to the River, they did have Psycho Killer. these would have been songs that would have at least been popular on college radio because these guys are British. Maybe they were like, hey, we're going to try to be British Talking Heads. People in the know would have known about these guys. So I think it's fair to criticize them on that point. Also, the Devo, yes, Devo is also like getting a lot of notes of them too. This album is very clearly kind of like a lip of American New Wave at the time. So this album, it's kind of like it's almost good, which kind of makes it more frustrating that it isn't. I thought the guitar solo Making Plans for Nigel was kind of cool, but it didn't save the track. It wasn't a good track. It's too stiff. There's not enough groove. You know, Talking Heads make stiff music, but they still have a backbeat. You know, they still have a groove. This doesn't. This is kind of like the quirkiness of the Talking Heads, but none of the groove, none of the charisma. It feels like you're just throwing stuff at the wall, hoping that sticks. I get the impression they don't believe in it. That they're just trend chasing. They don't really believe in what they're saying. So I'm into a lot of the Pixies record where like I feel like I should have liked it a lot. You know, it has all the ingredients, you know, of things that I would enjoy, but it's missing that secret sauce. Maybe it's missing the love. Maybe it's missing David Byrne's famous autism. Whatever it is, it just isn't hitting right. I thought Millions was okay. I didn't hate that. It's got a slightly different vibe to it than the rest of the record. Good bass line. I also enjoyed That Is the Way, and I was starting to think at this point, you know, maybe the back half of this record will be okay. You know, maybe I'll enjoy it. Then Outside World came in and put that hope to rest real quick. I do think it was cool for them to have a song about the villain from Clock Tower. Great game series. Honestly, it's fitting to have this song share the same name as a villain in an iconic survival horror game, because this song is making me fight for my life with how stupid it is. Clock Tower is famously a complicated game, so maybe it's a 2-song suite about Clock Tower here at the end. You know, you got Scissor Man, you got Complicated Game. Once again, I feel like I'm just trying to survive listening to this. And yes, I am so annoyed with this album. I'm just talking about a survival horror game for the Super Nintendo. Trust me, it is more interesting than this record actually is. Also, PlayStation as well. They did a Final Fantasy, started on the SNES, then went to PlayStation. Actually, those games were inspired by Dario Argento, who, of course, is the other big Italian horror director from the 70s and 80s, who had the similar style of film as Lucio Fulci, and had a similar style of music as he had Goblin do his scores for him. So, just nice to tie it all back together right there at the end. Bring it back home to the beyond. Which is what you should just really be listening to over this. Just go listen to that. Don't listen to this. That album's not sounds better. So I do have a little conclusion here, and that is that you don't have much to say about this record. It's almost too stupid to be forgettable, but it's still very forgettable. At the top of this, I did say I had heard one of the albums before, and that is Skylarking. And Skylarking is a significant upgrade to this record because it's a band who has their own sound. If you're going to listen to XTC, listen to that record. I may not have loved that record, but it's not like a lip of either Devo, the Talking Heads, or anyone. It's very much they found their own sound with it, and it sounds like nobody else. Which is just 1,000 times better than just being like the British version of Devo and the Talking Heads. So if you're gonna go out of your way to listen to XTC, listen to that record. It's not like my favorite. I wouldn't like say, oh, it's the best thing ever, but it's a solid piece of work. And this album, it was just goofy without execution. Go listen to The Beyond.
Fan, I have a question for you.
What's up?
Would you say that this XTX whatever album is basically Talking Heads, but without the autism?
Yeah, it is entirely Talking Heads, but without the autism. It's like the faking it.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Next person who's up to give their opinion is Papal.
All right, so I agree with fan sentiment of listening to Skylarking, which has the best XTC song in my opinion, which is Dear God, but that's besides the point. Yeah, this album definitely has I'm a debut album vibes to it, and the fact that it's not that great. It does feel like it's overly goofy than it has to be. It's just too much on some tracks.
Can I interrupt briefly? I just want to point out that this is not XTC's debut album. This is their third album.
Well, it feels like a debut album is what I meant to say.
Okay. So I just wasn't sure if you thought it was the debut album or if you were just trying to say it sounded like one. Sorry.
No, it feels like a debut album.
Okay.
Because it just feels undirected and like it's just starting out of ideas. And I did like the opening track, Making Plans for Nigel, which should be the only surviving track and is the only surviving track really in the modern eye from this album. And probably the only reason that this album gets any talk nowadays. And even then, it's not even their best song. I did kind of like Day In, Day Out's chorus. Just good vibe to it. I don't know. And that's really where the good talk ends. And back to the bad talk is that, yeah, it just feels, as everyone said, like Talking Heads of the Autism or Devo without the weird charisma that Devo has for some reason to me, at least. Yeah, it's just not good. It's got 2 songs that are serviceable, and that's it.
All right. Yes. Okay. So that brings us to me. I don't think I'm going to be quite as harsh as the rest of you all, but listening to this, I was like, yeah, this is kind of a rip of Talking Heads. I will say I do like Making Plans on Nigel. I kind of like the guitar on that. Lyrics are kind of interesting as well on that one. The rest of this, Helicopter in particular, sounded like kind of a rip-off, but I did kind of like Life Begins at a Hop and Chain of Command. Those were towards the end. I do think the later parts of the album were a little bit better than the beginning, with the exception of Nigel. But it's not... Still, I mean, it's not, like, amazing. I don't think there was anything on this album that was particularly amazing in any sense of the word. So, yeah, this is just, I think, going to go down as kind of one of those forgettable albums we've done on the Album Club. It's, I think, going to join the same category that something like Tons of Sobs by Free is in, so, yeah. That's about it for me. Sorry to fans of XTC.
I have an important question.
Yes.
Which album did we like better? The XTC Drums and Wires or Bring Over the Fourth?
Well, it's gonna be
XTC. I'd rather jump off a cliff.
It's easy XTC win for me. XTC.
XTC at least didn't have like the worst cover in history with Sneak and Sally Through the Alley, where Gringo
I thought you were talking about album cover.
No, well, that too.
Yeah.
That is not a good, I mean, that's a good call, because that is not good either, for Gringo the Fourth. But, yeah, I gotta go with this XTC is a better record, but that's like, you know, that's not really any high praise.
I mean, this has Making Plans for Nigel.
Yeah.
Does Ringo the Fourth have that? Didn't think so.
That's probably because Ring of the Fourth was before Making Plans and Nigel came out. Maybe if it had been after this, maybe Ringo would have given us a cover of it.
Dude, I wish we got a Ringo the Fifth, and it's just him trying to do new wave instead of him trying to do disco. That would have been awesome.
God.
It would have been terrible.
He could do a cover of Psycho Killer as well. That would be interesting. Alright, now we're moving on to which album of these albums we like better. So the options here are The Beyond or Drums and Vials. Ringo the Fourth is not an option this time. Sorry guys. So Ben, we'll start with you. Which one of these albums did you like better?
Well, I like Drums and Vials' cover better. If we're comparing the two album covers. Obviously, Dance Slow is The Beyond. The Beyond was just so much better. It's not even a question.
I will say I'm not sure I actually ever saw The Beyond's album cover, but I suppose I will while editing this video at some point. Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to get some copy of the album cover from somewhere to go in the video's visuals, so we'll see. Stay tuned. Matthew, which album did you like better?
The Beyond.
The Beyond. Alright, that's 2 for The Beyond. Kind of think maybe I know how this is gonna go. Fan, I know how you're gonna vote.
I don't know if you really know. I could be a curveball. You always say I'm a wild card. I'm gonna vote for The Beyond. It was obvious from the second this album was chosen. Before we even got to the second band, I was like, well, I think I know what's winning for me.
Yeah, I think we all knew you were going to pick The Beyond. Paper.
I'm gonna go with my favorite air freshener Febreze on this one. The Beyond.
Alright, as for me, I won't say I was thrilled by one of these albums, but I did enjoy The Beyond more. It felt like less of a slog listening to it. Now, part of that may be just kind of the conditions in which I listened to them, but still, XTC-Album took me a while. When I actually started listening to it, I got to Helicopter. You know, I've begun to see I hadn't listened to albums before. When I got to Helicopter, it's like, yeah, I think I've heard this song before. Maybe I tried to listen to this album before at some point, and it was just such a slog that I, toned it off or whatever. Because, I don't know, it sounded kind of familiar, but, the later parts of albums didn't, so I don't know, maybe I tried to listen to this before and, just gave up on it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So yeah, now we're going on to who picked what album. I think absolutely nobody can guess who picked The Beyond. Can anyone guess who picked The Beyond? I don't think anyone can.
Fan picked The Beyond, and Chris picked the forgettable Wannabe Talking Heads album.
Yeah, I think Chris picked XTC.
Me too. I agree.
Not sure who picked The Beyond though. Could be any one of these cool guys in here though.
Yeah, I think that Fan picked The Beyond, and then Chris picked XCC.
Okay,
as everyone else has said already.
Okay, but what if I told you that Santiago picked The Beyond? He did it, but what if I told you that?
Santiago.
That would be a curveball.
That would be a call. The Beyond was picked by Fan, obviously. And Drums and Wires was, yes, picked by me. So yeah, I mean, it was a pairing. We talked about it quite a bit. I think this was very successful listening experience in so much as, we had two things to sink our teeth into. We talked about them quite a bit, and we did come to a conclusion. A very definitive, very unanimous conclusion, even, because The Beyond did win unanimously. So if you enjoy this type of a music commentary, please be sure to like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. Hopefully, maybe they'll put The Beyond officially on streaming. I think fans said it had been at some point and they took it off.
It was, but then I think they Legion locked it to Italy. So this video was sponsored by NordVPN. Go to NordVPN/album club.
Don't you hate it?
You get 15% off your order.
No, actually, though.
Don't you hate it when you want to watch? Don't you hate it when you want to watch a movie, but you're on a different part of the country? I really wanted to watch this one anime, but sadly, there's no streaming services that are on it. Well, that's why today's sponsor is NordVPN. Do whatever fans just said, and you'll basically go watch movies without any borders.
Use our code or we'll kill you.
Use our code, or you can't watch excellent movies like The Beyond.
Yeah.
Or
Which
any other
actually
anime.
is shockingly on Peacock
I
here in
actually-
America, which was
yeah,
a.
I will say, disclaimer, I don't actually have a sponsorship with NordVPN, 1. 2, yes, I was actually able to watch some of the movie. The movie is actually pretty officially available, just not the soundtrack on its own. 3,
Nord, please don't sue us.
yeah, 3, 4,
They're gonna love us.
4, we need to figure out whoever the distributor is, whoever owns the rights to the music, and badge them into releasing it here in America again. I'm enlisting all my followers, all my subscribers, at the time of this recording, 700 and something subscribers. Please write to the people who own the Beyond's music copyright and ask them to please re-release it again on Spotify and YouTube and Apple Music, I guess, if I've never used Apple Music, and whatever the other ones are. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and get writing.